made. And he gave it to the robbers. He said, "You take this to the palace. You insist on being taken to the ladies in waiting of the queens. And when you ask for 1,000 pieces of gold, surely it will be given to you." So the robbers, now dressed in finery like traveling merchants, went to the palace and demanded to see the ladies in waiting. Well, when the handkerchief was taken to the queen, she immediately knew it was the work of her husband, and she was the only one who knew that her husband was missing. The secret hadn't been put out because they didn't want the populace at large to be concerned, but she knew immediately that this was from her husband, the emir. So she told her lady-in-waiting to hand over the 1,000 pieces of gold to the robber and to make sure that he was followed back to where he'd come, because surely that was where her husband would be found. Well, as soon as the robber, dressed as a merchant, got his 1,000 pieces of gold, he hurried straight back to his compatriot, and they congratulated each other on their haul. And the very next day, the emir was put to work to make more of these handkerchiefs so that they could make a haul. And they said, well, of course, when he's made 10 and we make it that much money, we'll just kill him. But the very next day, as the emir was working at his little loom and the robbers were sitting counting their loot, a contingent of the emir's guards came, burst into the house, and freed the emir and the vizier, and carted off the robbers, whose heads were very quickly lopped off their shoulders. And the emir, being very pleased to see his guards arrive, when he was taken back to the palace, when the vizier and he were alone, the emir made a remark to the vizier about what it is that had happened to them relative to his trade. What would you say? How would you finish this story? How is this realization that comes to us when we know what we do? How is it that knowing what we do disallows us from being one of those wandering sadhus with the dreadlocks, the disheveled clothing, going around the streets muttering? Because we know those sadhus are in that state, that perpetual state where stillness and movement meet. But it appears totally incoherent. Of course, if you happen to get up close to them, if you can bear the smell, you might hear a few words of wisdom in their mutterings. But that's not it, is it? So, what about this story? It's not just in completing it in our own way, but understanding the working of the story itself. And it might give us a glimmer of how it is that we ourselves do without doing. What did the Emir say to the Vizier? How would you sum it up? I'm so glad that I learned to be a weaver because
discovering life pattern relation free.
that's right. That's right. And some of the very greatest Sufi teachers were shopkeepers and weavers. Tradesmen, artisans, shadow makers, road diggers. Because all the little things that they do are important. And yet it's not the trade, it's the modus operandi. Emir was still an Emir. Next week's meditation on Sunday